So Calvin, we met at 15, right, at West Campus.
Berkeley High, yeah.
And you were already a bike racer, and I was getting into it. And and from there, we ended up racing. We ended up getting out of high school, thinking about our careers.
You helped me win my first race.
I helped you win your first race. And we decided, I think both of us wanted to be pro racers.
Ride the tour.
Ride the tour,
yeah,
win the
dream,
tour, all the
dream,
dreams.
dream.
And you actually went and were very brave. I was a little more cautious. But you went to Europe and raced, and you have some amazing stories from that time. It's just such adventures that you had. And there's one particular one that you've told me about that I think, you know, we need to tell everybody about. It's just such a wonderful story.
Well, after Berkeley High, in the 70s, I raced in Belgium 3 times, once, and then another 3 months, and then 2 months again in 79. But so Alex, after that really selfless effort where you helped me win Hilltop Criterion, my first senior win right out of high school, I went on to win a few more races, and of course, my dad always said, follow your heart. So I went over to Belgium and raced 3 times and got some top 3s, but never won. And then came back, did some stuff in the States, more racing, went to Belgium another 2 months the following year, and got some top 3s, but never won. Then I had a huge opportunity, thanks to a whole lot of wins in 1980, to get selected for the Coors Classic team. The first year of the Coors Classic, the Coors sponsored the big classic in Colorado, which we both rode. But you weren't riding that year. So that team had a rider on it, Jacques Boyer, who set me up with a really great opportunity in France. I thought to myself, well, I've done Belgium, so let's try France. And he said, if you want to be a pro, I can set you up with one of the best teams in Paris, US Crotté. In 1980, it was incredible. The best team I ever rode with, Jacques Boyer and Mike Neal, who got 10th place in the World Pro Championships, was on the team. In 1977, he'd gotten 10th. But that year in 80, after the Coors Classic and Boyer ended up winning, and I was his domestique, he went on to get 5th place in the World Championships behind Bernard Hinault. Hinault picked Boyer to be on the Tour de France. So in 1981, Jacques Boyer became Hinault's domestique and had the honor of being the first U.S. cyclist to race the Tour. But at that time, Boyer set me up with the amateur team. There's 2 big amateur teams in Paris, ACBB and US Crotté. And he set me up with the US Crotté team. Well, when I got there, long story about traveling there, but when I got there, there was an apartment. And it wasn't clear how much space was in the apartment, but I showed up at the apartment just outside Paris where the team had put up some foreign riders. There were 3 English guys and a Polish guy. And the 3 English guys, Steve Poulter and Perry Bradley and Stephen Moss, out of the 3 English guys, Steve Poulter was winning. He was the only one winning. And Czeslaw from Poland hadn't won a race yet. And I hadn't won a race either. So just by virtue of, 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds being how they are, the person who won the race got the bedroom. So Steve Poulter was sleeping in one of the bedrooms. And Czeslaw, by virtue of, he'd had a little more, how can I put it tactfully, a little more bravado and fierceness. It was determined that he got the second bedroom. So the rest of us, one of the Steves sometimes slept on the floor with Poulter because he was a nice guy and they were both English and they were buddies. And then so the other one, Perry Bradley and I, mostly slept on the couch or the floor in the living room, but we were just excited to be living the dream, maybe someday riding the Tour, and we'd heard Boyer was going to be riding the Tour, so it was like a real thing. Someone from the United States was riding the Tour. So a couple months before the Tour de France, Paris-Roubaix happens, and there's a professional version, which is the biggest one-day race in the world. and maybe next to the World Championships. And then there's also an amateur version of the Paris-Roubaix. Well, the day of the Paris-Roubaix amateur, Steve Poulter and Cesloff were picked for our team to go to the big race. But the other three of us had to find some other races. So I found a race just outside of Paris, and 110 guys showed up. It was about 120 kilometers long, and it doesn't necessarily make the race easier just because the big classic, the Paris-Roubaix, was on the same day. The 110 who showed up, they all had the same thought: oh, the big guys, the top dogs are gone, they're at the big race, so today's our day. So halfway through the race, some breaks developed, and I was still on the field, and a big group got away with maybe half the race to go, and there were like 12, 13, 14 riders. And I pretty much thought the race was over. They were 2 or 3 minutes up down the road on us, and without really thinking about it, just kind of stumbled into a bridge to the break, which is 3 riders trying to get up to the lead group of the 13 or 14. And the 3 of us worked hard together, traded pace, did our thing, no real expectation of catching the group. Well, with 10K to go, 1 lap on this circuit race just outside of Paris, the 3 of us caught the lead break. And as we caught the lead break, it was right at the start-finish line. And without really thinking about it or making any plans, we were so on the rivet, as they say, going our best. I just rode right through, no attack. So at this point, there were the 13.
Did you leave out the part about the pills?
Well, there was a little incident before we all went off to our races that day. 2 of them are the Paris-Roubaix, and the rest of us 2 other races were Cesloff, who had not yet won a race like me, says to me, "Galvin," and he gives me these 6 little pills with instructions. Now, his mastery of English was about 6 words, and his French wasn't a whole lot better. So he spoke in grunts and things, but he said, 2, 1, 2, 40K. And then he leaned even closer like it was a big secret and said, dude, 80K. And then finally the coup de grace, the last 2 pills. Oops. I got the top working. Last 2 at 100K and so that was the directions I had. I did take the 6 pills to the race with me, just outside of Paris, and I had them in my pocket ready to go, maybe wrapped in a little something. And as the race went on, back to the break and the action, just with 10K to go, we get up there, and I roll through, not thinking anything like, and with a 5-second gap, and I kind of look under my shoulder and I got a little gap, so I just keep pedaling in a big gear and thinking, well, maybe someone will get up to me and this will work. I keep pedaling, but nobody bridges up to me. And there's 5K to go, and it's just the motorcycle and me. And we're riding along, and I'm going, whoa, the gap's getting bigger. Because behind me, there's like 15 guys, thinking, who's that? He's never won a race.
Right.
He's going to die. He can't make it to the end. And with the dynamics in bike racing, with that many, no one wants to sacrifice themselves and pull this one guy down who probably will fade and won't win anyway. So 3K to go, 2K to go, 1K to go. I finally put up my hands, cross the line, win my first race in France, go to the podium. They want to ask all these questions. They thought I was Greg LeMond, because Greg LeMond was doing really well. They want to know if I knew Greg, and I said yes. And then they want to ask all these questions about what Greg LeMond's secret life was. And also in France, you win a gigantic, not plastic. In Belgium, you get big plastic flowers, bouquets, but they're real flowers in France. So I won the big bouquet, the real flowers. And on the way home from the race, after my first race win in Europe, I decided to stop off at Serge Bayot's house and leave the flowers for his wife.
Very nice.
Since they put me up and gave me clothes and tires and a place to live. So it was a fitting and appropriate gesture after winning a race. So I go by and I leave the flowers with Serge's wife and go back to the apartment. And Czeslaw, who doesn't even finish the Perry-Robet, comes home a little later and goes by the director's house and sees the flowers and hears the story of how Calvin got these flowers and dropped them off on his way home, and he'd won the race. So, back at the apartment, when Czeslaw returns from the Perry-Robet, the first thing he does is pick me up, throw me on the couch, and jump me in a really celebratory manner, pretty much pummels me as to like an absolute glee that he helped me win a race. And when he was finished celebrating his very Czeslaw way, I just had the pills, and I just pulled them out. Wherever they were, maybe they were on the desk or my pocket, I don't remember. I pulled out the 6 pills he'd given me with specific instructions on how to take, and he just took one look at the 6 pills. With this incredulous look, the guy was speechless, didn't have a thing to say. How could someone win a race without any amphetamine?
Yeah. Huh. Incredible.
And as far as I know, he never won a race that year. And I went out to Brittany and never won one in Brittany. We got some more top 3s. And that's the story of Czeslaw and
All right.
the 6 little pills.